With over 100,000 electric cars making it onto the Australian roads in 2025, what will 2026 bring? Is it the year when the EV prices floor finally collapses? And what can we expect in terms of the models, charging infrastructure? Are there going to be any specials that will really drive the adoption to new levels? What would that look like? How many more EVs are we going to get on the road? Well, that's what we're going to find out in this very special episode. My name is Riz. I'm the founder of Carloop, Australia's #1 electric vehicle data supplier. I'm also a contributor to The Driven, which is Australia's #1 EV publication, alongside co-hosting the EV show with Ludicrous Feed. So yeah, let's get straight into it. What have we got happening this year when it comes to EV adoption? 2026, it's already here. I cannot believe how much growth we've seen over the last 12 to 24 months, but this year I think is going to be the key kicker. We have now had over 100,000 battery electric vehicles come onto our roads in 2025, and that sort of set the foundation or the stage for what's there to come. We have so many new models, so many choices coming in. It is truly going to be a new era. We've moved past the early adopters and we're on to getting into the next stage of EV adoption, which is early mainstream. So expect EV adoption to hit over 15% in some months during 2026. We've not had that happen yet. We had a couple of months in 2025 where over 10% of the vehicle sales were electric vehicles. So these are battery electric vehicles, not plug-in hybrids. And that's about to ramp up pretty quickly in 2026 with some key models that have launched that I think is really going to help propel 2026 in terms of how many EVs people are buying. Now, moving on to what is the reality right now. The reality is 2026 is the first full year where all manufacturers will be held to account when it comes to how many battery electric cars they're selling. Otherwise, there are potential fines if they choose to sell more petrol and diesel powered cars compared to electric vehicles. So it incentivizes them to really be bringing in some of their best models available globally, which means more choice for everybody else when it comes to buying a cleaner, now cheaper battery electric car over what's been out there already with petrol and diesel cars. So the next key thing that we're going to talk about is the price points. Once upon a time, there used to be a lot of saying around, hey, EVs are too expensive. I'm going to wait a couple of years if this technology ever becomes any cheaper. In 2026, we will have multiple models that will be under $25,000. Now, there's not a lot of options for buying a new car when it comes to under that 25,000 price point. And that's just any car, it doesn't have to be an electric car. But 2026 will be the first year where we'll have multiple offerings under $25,000. I remember a couple of years ago when we had the first EV under $50,000, that was a big deal. Now we have dozens of models under $50,000. But that kept coming down. So 2025, we saw a whole lot of models under $40,000. So now in 2026, we are going to be seeing multiple models under $25,000, which is sort of the price point that a lot more people will start to gauge their interest to actually test drive one and see what EVs are really all about. And they're not as out of reach as it used to be back in the day. So starting with BYD Atto 1. Now this vehicle is truly a game changer. I remember back in 2023, I first wrote an article about it when it was unveiled at the Shanghai Auto Show, and there were a whole lot of German executives and other executives from companies that flew into China after COVID to have a look at this car, and they were entirely blown away at what BYD was able to produce, a fully electric vehicle at the prices that they had. And at that time it was sort of around 20,000 Australian dollars in the Chinese market. Now of course we're starting to get it in Australia, and that is also going to be quite a bit of a game changer when it comes to people thinking about electric vehicles coming in at such a price. I've driven it multiple times in China, here in Australia, and all I can say is it is such a fun car, and I think a lot of people are not only going to get the benefits of a battery electric vehicle, but also going to get a chance to see how fun an electric car can be. and possibly go and buy one. Or wait till there's other models like the Geely EX2, which is now officially China's best-selling car in 2025. So they've sold over 400,000 units. That's a lot of sales in 1 year, and it is also one of the best-selling cars in the world because it sold over 400,000 cars. That's destined for our market in the second half of this year. That's been confirmed by Geely Australia. It is coming, and we expect that price to be anywhere between $24,000 to $30,000. We know Geely has priced things pretty aggressively in the past with the Geely EX5, which has sold thousands in 2025, and I think that success is going to continue, but this is going to take things at our next level. Next up, we're also going to get a few more affordable SUVs that are going to be slightly above the $25,000 mark, but like I said, it's getting close enough where they are even better priced than most other comparable petrol and diesel cars. What it means is that there will be plenty of budget models available to people, making EVs way more accessible. That means, it's no longer, hey, is it out of my price range? No, it's just getting into a dealer and test driving one for yourself. Also, it's going to drive quite a few young buyers who might not have considered an electric car in the past due to price, but are really wanting to drive something cleaner. These prices of these new models like the Atto 1 and the Geely EX2 are going to ensure that this could be their first new car, and why not it be cleaner and electric. And then also for regional buyers as well, people that are living in regional towns that may only drive to local shops and maybe looking for their second car. This could be something that would be quite attractive to them. So we look forward to seeing what that trend looks like, but that is going to also drive us with monthly sales of over 10% consistently for 2026. So we will obviously check this out later on in the year to see how it's tracking, but that is another thing to look out for. Now, we've spoken about hatchbacks like the Atto 1 and the Geely EX2. What's happening in one of the most popular segments in the Australian market, which is the utes. Now, utes and commercial vehicles, 2025 was a pivotal year. Why? Because of one model and one model alone, the BYD Shark 6. Having driven it in 2024, I was just amazed at how much of a vehicle that really is compared to a lot of the diesel cars that are currently on the road. Back in the day, I used to drive a Ford Ranger for work, and it was a nice car for its time, given it was a company car and it was running on diesel. I did not used to like filling it up with diesel every time you had to sort of do that once a week or so. And then the driving experience was, let's just say not as comfortable as what this Shark was. This Shark took things to another level. It gave you the comfort of an electric car if you're driving in an EV only mode, with an acceleration of most, let's say, sort of sports or performance petrol or diesel vehicles, but did it all in such a quiet way. And I was a huge fan when I first drove that car, and I'm really hoping that we're going to see a fully electric version of that in 2026, 2027. But all of that aside, we do have a couple of utes that are coming in that are going to be fully electric. First one being the KGM e-Taurus, which is definitely one that to have a look at. It's not a full-fledged ute, it's a little bit smaller, the tray is a bit smaller, the towing is not really there, but it is an option. The Toyota Hilux is likely to get an electric version in 2026, as well as the Isuzu D-Max. We'll obviously be keeping an eye out on what that ute market actually does when those models land, and we're really hoping that that happens quicker rather than later in 2026. Previously, we've seen that there's been quite a few delays, but now with the new vehicle emission standard, it's in Toyota, Isuzu, and other legacy automakers' best interest to bring these electric models in, offering way more choice in areas such as the ute segment, which is popular, but we haven't had many options. So we'll tick the hatchbacks, we've ticked the utes, we've got so many models in between. This is going to be quite interesting to see how that all pans out. We also want to see what the evolution of the Shark looks like. BYD has been spotted to be working on a couple of other utes products. We don't know a lot about them just yet. They keep those pretty close to their chest, but we're likely to see way more information in later this year. So watch this space, subscribe to this channel, and you'll get to find out a bit more. Now, we've also mentioned in the past that new vehicle emission standards are sort of, the vehicle efficiency standards are in the works now. What does that actually mean? Well, as we said earlier, there'll be a lot more electric vehicle options coming in from traditional car makers. Traditionally, have been obviously selling petrol and diesel vehicles. They've been a bit hesitant of bringing electric models in. They don't have many in the works. Now, though, they have every reason to bring it in. Otherwise, there will be fines, there will be naming and shaming, and all of those sort of things start to come together, particularly when the NVES regulator has to start to name and shame some of those brands as well, with reports coming in. The first one is actually going to be next month in February. Worth watching this space. The other thing would be there will be a leaderboard. Who's winning, who's losing when it comes to who's missing the targets, who's actually delivering on those. We're going to see a lot more of that regularly, which, let's just say, would create a bit of an even playing field. So if you bring in electric vehicles, you're going to be doing quite well if you've already been doing that. But if you haven't been doing that as a legacy car maker, you better be bringing in way more new models. Top tip here, a lot of them will be coming in from China. That's interesting, whether it's Nissan, Mazda, a lot of the bigger companies that we know. I think we're likely going to see quite a few of those. Might have a Nissan, Mazda, or any of those badges on them, but deep down they will be based off Chinese electric vehicle technology, which we know already is industry leading. So that's going to happen. The other thing that we're actually going to see is, what does it mean for you and I? If we're in the market for buying a car in 2026, the brands that miss those targets means they're not selling a lot of electric vehicles. Either they don't have the models, or they are just not pushing their dealers hard enough to sell them. Australia is not ready for EVs. This is a common phrase that gets used around our dealerships. We're likely to see that change. If it doesn't change, it means that they won't be able to sell electric cars that they need to reach their targets to help lower emissions of their overall fleet, which also means, hey, more discounts. So discounts on electric models that those brands do bring in, if they're not selling them, they've got to clear them. So huge incentives to follow for buyers that are looking at making the switch, which means, hey, you could potentially buy an electric car from a fairly well trusted, recognized brand in the country with, dealers across the nation for thousands less than what they were when they brought that model into the market. So a lot of savings to continue. Goes back to that, what this video is titled, which is, it's going to be a new sort of price ceiling that we're going to finally get under and ensure that there are cheaper models available for all drivers. Now, EVs and charging go hand in hand. 2025, we saw quite a significant increase in EV charging infrastructure. Carloop, that's our bread and butter. We analyze the market, we collect data on where the charging sites are opening and what's happening. And our data shows that we've gone from around about 1,100 sites to 1,500 sites in early 2026. With that in mind, as there's more EVs on the road, it means that they're all going to be having to be charged. And with the charging infrastructure, finally starting to grow, it will make it so much easier for people who are still on the fence and not really sure whether electric cars are right for them to see the 1,500 fast charging sites across the country. A vote of confidence to say, hey, I can do this. Of course, one of the key things that we're expecting to see in 2026 is that big federal government charging infrastructure rollout that was in partnership with NRMA. A lot of sites have opened in 2025 as part of that huge nationwide network. This is not the only network. There is others that are sort of being prompted by states such as WA, South Australia, Queensland has a fairly extensive charging network that's been supported by the state governments, and of course New South Wales, who are leading the charge when it comes to providing co-funding as well as opening the most amount of sites in that state thanks to the co-funding that they've provided and the guidelines they've given to charging infrastructure providers. That was years ago, that was part of their strategy, and that strategy has worked because there's a lot more investment in New South Wales when it comes to charging infrastructure. States like Victoria, well, there's a way to go, and we will touch more of that in later videos backed by data on what's going on in Victoria and other places as well. When it comes to charging infrastructure, that's my home state. I'll be sharing a lot more when it comes to the charging infrastructure in this state, and I think how we're possibly lagging behind some of the other states as well. So we definitely need that national infrastructure to support some regions that there's no charges there at the moment. Now, other sort of key things. I touched on state governments that have been investing in charging infrastructure. In 2025, Western Australia opened the 5,000 plus kilometre electric highway. Queensland also did a bit of work on their electric superhighway as well. And, South Australia's rollout sort of was completed, the RAA charging network, in 2024. So those sites, of course, are all open to people that are going to need to charge. The other, of course, the big thing this year is going to be keep an eye out on existing networks such as Tesla, who have just before Christmas in 2025 rolled out almost 50 fast charging bays within a couple of weeks. That ensured that over that busy Christmas and New Year holiday period, there wasn't much congestion. So all the stories where you used to see, mainstream media cover, hey, there's a huge queue of vehicles, they just didn't happen this year. That's been really, really good in 2025 to see. And I think 2026, with all these EVs coming on board, we're going to need a lot more chargers on the road, which means a lot more investment is likely to go in. Brands like, Tesla, Ampol, Explorin, ChargeFox, EV, they're all going to be coming together to be rolling out more sites. And with Tesla chargers, of course, a lot of the supercharging sites are open to non-Teslas as well, and in some cases are actually a lot cheaper than what some of the other networks are offering. So do your research, price trends later in the year on what's going on, any price movements when it comes to charging. Also, new sites that are coming on board, because you never know when these sites are going to open around your local area. With chargers like Tesla, for example, when they open a supercharger site, by the time it's spotted, it's only a couple of days from opening, or sometimes a couple of weeks. So we've ticked off the charging infrastructure side as well. What other trends are sort of starting to come together? New brands. So 2025, we saw brands like Geely launch into the market. IM, which is a luxury brand for MG, also launch into our market. We had GAC finally enter our market as well. That's still just the start. 2026, we're going to see a whole lot more. Denza will finally start to deliver cars. That's the premium brand for BYD, and I think BYD does know how to do premium vehicles. I was in Shenzhen in May 2025, where we got to see, test and visit a lot of the production facilities as well, and the scale of everything is impressive. I can't wait to test Denza products when they finally land in Australia in early 2026, and there'll be a whole lot of other models that will be coming in as well. Still sticking to Denza, other sort of models, the Denza D9 people mover segment we saw in 2025. A lot more people movers are starting to come in. Zeekr 009, one of the most luxurious people movers out there. Denza will bring in their own sort of premium luxury people mover called the D9. I've been in the back of one in April, where they were kind enough in Shanghai to take us to a few of their showrooms and dealerships, and it's luxurious, let's call it that. So can't wait to experience that. But that segment will also start to open. On the back of that, there'll be a Z9, which is another Denza model that's likely to come into the market as well in 2026, and potentially others as well. So keep an eye out. Now, obviously, Denza will compete in some ways directly with BMW, Mercedes, and Audi, possibly even Lexus, which is sort of the experience that they're going for. So it'll be worth watching this space as what happens when it comes to new premium brands such as Denza and how they tackle some of the legacy automakers. So game on is what's happening now. The other one, speaking of those luxury car makers, European car makers are also making a bit of a comeback. BMW will launch their iX3, the new Neue class, which was revealed in 2025. I think it's going to be an absolute winner, that car, when it lands in the Australian market, and it will be probably out of the three big luxury German brands, your BMW, Audi, Mercedes. I think that will likely be, in the top three of top battery electric vehicle sales from those brands. And the other two are also going to be a BMW model. They've done remarkably well in this electric vehicle sales in 2025, and we're likely going to see that growth with new models like the iX3. A bit more affordable end of that market, we're also going to see the Skoda, brands like Skoda and Volkswagen bring a few models into our market. Some of them may have been out in Europe for a couple of years, so we're just going to have to see what consumers and drivers want when it comes to an electric car. Do they want something that's been proven and tested for the last couple of years in the European market, that's from a brand that they know, or are they willing to give things a go with newer brands that are coming into the market, such as Zeekr, Xpeng, GAC and others? We'll just find out. But yeah, European affordable brands are also starting to, let's just say, bring some of the new models into our market that are likely going to convince some buyers, but we'll see the overall success later in 2026. The value end of the market really take off. There'll be a whole lot more models, so many more options. Supply is going to be plenty. Nobody will be waiting 6 months, 12 months, 18 months like they're doing with some of the Toyota models or some others. A lot of the times, even as the cars are launched, people are not waiting very long from brands like BYD to be able to take deliveries. The pace at which things are happening is going to be quite quick, but at the same time, we're going to be seeing a whole lot more people interested in electric cars that will go and test drive even affordable models and are likely going to be blown away at the amount of technology that's inside compared to what they're used to driving. So, what's my take? Well, the debate is over in 2026. 2026 is all about the choice. It's no longer should I buy an EV or should I wait? No, it's just going to be, if you can buy one, what model is going to be right for you? So that's what's really going to come down to this year. We're going to hit close to 15% in quite a few months this year when it comes to total vehicle sales being a battery electric car. That's not to forget the number of models and brands that are still not here yet. So watch this space, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're looking for data insights to make the right decision so you're prepared for what's there to come in 2026 and beyond.